While the dwarfs were crafting swords, Ronan is still baffled by the existence of such a massive forge beneath Valen's city. Didikon then informs him that this smithy only supplies items to the royal family and the noble families, so it is expected to be secretive. However, despite their clients being only nobles and royals, this smithy does not discriminate against employment, as all the craftsmen here are from different races or statuses. However, among all of them, there is only one person who is regarded very highly and is considered to be the best blacksmith in the empire. That person is an elder dwarf who is a master blacksmith and has smelted iron for more than 400 years, and currently, they are in front of his workshop. Didikon explains that although the old man is quite stubborn, his skills are unrivaled, thus he respects him greatly. He says that while kicking open the door, making a loud noise. As they take a look inside, they see many high-quality swords lying on the ground, while a dwarf is hammering iron. Didikon then questions the dwarf what he is doing, and informs him that he has brought some interesting guests. Judging by how he made such a loud noise while barging in, the dwarf realizes that it's Didikon. So he asks him why he is being so noisy, despite being told to keep quiet when he is working. To which he replies with an excuse that it wasn't his fault, as the weapons were piled up to the point where they were blocking the front door. That's why he suggests the dwarf to clean up, addressing him as Elder Daron. While being annoyed for getting nagged by a youngster, he notices Ronan and his friends. So he inquires if they are really good enough to be brought here, to which Didikon replies affirmatively, informing him that he verified it himself, and considers Ronan's swordsman skills to be extraordinary to the point where he thinks that even Daron might get shocked upon seeing it. This surprises him as it's really unexpected given Ronan's appearance, which is that of a child. Thus, in order to get a grasp of his strength, he tells Ronan to show his weapon since he can tell a lot of things just by looking at it. Ronan then unsheathes his sword and hands it to Daron, who starts to analyze it right away and concludes that it is just a trash, so he breaks it using his hammer, questioning Ronan if he has been carrying this lump of iron as his weapon all this time. As Ronan watches his sword being shattered into pieces, he is left speechless, while Asel is immensely shocked. He then angrily asks why his sword was destroyed, and before he could finish his sentence, Daron points in the direction where there are many high-quality swords. He advises Ronan to try wielding any of the swords there, as he can't figure out his exact skills only judging by that trashy sword, which might not even be able to handle half his strength. Daron also informs him that any sword he chooses will be given to him for free, so he doesn't have to feel guilty if he were to break something. Moreover, anything he chooses will be 100 times better than his previous sword. Confused on what to do, he glances at Didikon, who nods to reassure him. Thus he decides to take up Daron's offer and choose a sword. Just by holding it, he feels different. However, he wonders if the differences are big enough for him to perform a technique similar to that of Instructor Nabarose. Ronan tells Daron that he can't be blamed if things were to break, to which he replies that it doesn't matter if anything breaks. What matters is for him to showcase the best he can do. Now that he is assured, Ronan decides to replicate Instructor Nabarose's technique, and as he begins to perform that technique, a trailing effect is shown. Then a red aura starts to surround him. Daron seems to be familiar with this technique, and wonders if it is really what he thinks. Just then, Ronan does a vertical slash, which causes a giant explosion, startling everyone around the smithy. Concerned, they wonder if a furnace has exploded at Elder Daron's workshop. As they see through the destroyed wall, Ronan is speechless, and so is Daron, and after clearly seeing the destruction caused by him, Ronan awkwardly states that he didn't mean to go this far. Daron then inquires if the technique Ronan showcases is Nabirose's, and whether he is her disciple, to which Ronan replies that he is indeed her disciple, and asks Daron if he is acquainted with Instructor Nabarose. Daron replies affirmatively, informing that he is the one who made her sword. Surprised, Ronan questions if he is talking about that stupidly long sword, to which Daron again replies affirmatively, informing that the sword is called Urusa, which is one of the few masterpieces that he forged throughout his life. Compared to that, the sword he is holding is at the level of a wooden stick. Leaving that matter aside, he asks Ronan his thoughts on the sword, and if it is to his liking, to which he replies that at first, he thought there wasn't much to it. However, it turns out to be way better than the sword he was previously using. Daron then says that he should be the one to say that, as he thought Ronan to be a rookie who didn't even know the limit of his own ability. He then smacks Ronan's back, saying that it's been a while since he has seen a talent like him. However, Having too much talent is also a problem, as judging by how even the mithril swords wasn't able to handle his strength, it won't be easy to create a sword that will suit him. Ronan then inquires what he should do, to which Daron informs him that normal materials won't be able to withstand his power, so he'll have to melt down a special material that is of the highest quality, which should be at least a byproduct of a wyvern level. Hearing about the byproduct, Ronan takes something out of his pocket and shows it to Daron, asking if this will do. This confused him, as the thing in Ronan's hand is the eggshell of Sita. Later in the workshop, Daron is vigorously hammering the eggshells with a mithril hammer. However, much to his surprise, he couldn't even scratch them, making him wonder how this kind of material even exists in this world. Eyes brimming with excitement, Daron rushed to Ronan and asked him if he could really use such a precious material, to which he replied affirmatively, stating that he had no use for it to begin with, and was just carrying it around. He inquires if the eggshells are enough to make a sword, to which Daron affirms, telling him to come back in 2 weeks. This much time is needed, as he plans to make him the best sword in the Empire. While Ronan is looking forward to it, Maria is checking some swords while Asel suggests she not touch them. Daron then calls out to them, suggesting that they should also meet other craftsmen while they are here. Excitedly, Maria questions whether they would also get swords, to which Daron replies affirmatively, stating that he can't just ignore the friends of special guests. So if they were to say that they were recommended by him, the other craftsmen will take good care of them. Although he would have loved to help them out himself, right now he can't think of anything else other than smelting this unusual eggshell. As he continues to hammer while laughing hysterically, Ronan and the others wonder if the old man is right in his head. As Daron keeps laughing, his laugh echoes through an underground cave that is right under the Grand Carpadoki. Someone wearing a white hood is annoyed and complains that the guys above them are being too noisy today. Another person states that he is at the point where he can't hold back his urge to burn them down. The other guy then advises him to be patient, as it's not the time for them to reveal their existence. Besides, those blacksmiths' days are numbered, as it will all begin with them, and eventually everything in this empire will soon be engulfed by the starlight and disappear. A few days later, at the Philian Academy, Ronan is taking a walk while recalling his lucky encounter with the old man, who is regarded as the best blacksmith in the empire. The old man had promised to personally craft him a sword. Meanwhile, Asel and Maria also found themselves a good blacksmith, whom they even commissioned to make their ideal weapons. Ronan quickly realizes that it's going to be very expensive to buy weapons from this smithy. However, he is not bothered by it since he will be using the Grancia family's identification plaque to pay for all their expenses. The only problem right now is that it will take 2 weeks until he gets his new sword, which made him wonder how he will spend time until then. Asel and Maria should be in class right now, so they won't be able to hang out with him, and he also won't be able to attend any classes since he already graduated from all of them. As he was walking, he came across the Galilean Building's training center, which is exclusively used by the upperclassmen. He is certain that this is one of the places where instructor Nabarose holds her class. Although he is allowed to attend her class, he was putting it off coming here because of her requirements on bringing in a decent weapon. As his new sword is still not ready, he got himself a temporary one, which is good enough. So he wonders, should he attend her class today or not? While he was lost in thought, Nabarose appears beside him with a menacing aura. Judging by the atmosphere, he quickly decides to explain his situation, but before he could even begin, Nabarose grabs him by the ear and begins to twist it, saying that it has been a while and questioning what he has been doing until now, despite being told to come to her class right after getting a weapon. She comes to the conclusion that Ronan is skipping classes, which he quickly denies, saying that he had his circumstances. However, she doesn't listen to him and starts to drag him towards the training hall while holding his ear tightly, saying that she'll listen to his excuse on the way. Ronan replies that he understands and requests that she let go of him, but she doesn't, so he starts to scream in pain. Meanwhile, a girl in a corridor faintly hears Ronan scream and wonders what the noise was. Then a guy intentionally bumps into her, saying that she is blocking the way. The girl apologizes to the guy, addressing him as Cardin. Instead of accepting the apology, the guy started insulting her, saying that she is too slow for someone who is the teacher's assistant. He also calls her a moron and tells her that if she has too much time to spare, she can just go and quickly prepare for the class. Despite being insulted for no reason, she doesn't take it to heart. She agrees with him and heads toward the class. Later in the sparring area, Instructor Nabarose summoned all the students to introduce Ronan. She considered it unnecessary since they had all witnessed Ronan's performance at the senior-junior meeting ceremony, but she decided to proceed anyway. She introduced him as Ronan, the freshman who will be attending this class from today onwards. Ronan then greets all the seniors, saying that he will be in their care from today onwards. The students began talking among themselves. Some were amazed that Ronan ranked second among the first years and was able to skip a grade, while others voiced their doubts, questioning if he was really that good since he looked like a dandy. All while Ronan could hear everything and found it really annoying. Despite this, he is glad to see some familiar faces who were genuinely happy to see him, although there is one particular face that he is not that happy to see. As he was thinking about how it still might be fun despite the annoying glares, a girl burst through the door and entered the classroom, apologizing to Instructor Nabarose for her being late. She explained in a shaky voice that she had to attend to something urgent, which caused her to lose track of time. Hearing a familiar voice, Ronan quickly turned around and looked at her. While she was panting due to rushing her way there, she asked Instructor Nabarose if she had waited for too long. Nabarose reassured her that it was completely fine and told her to catch her breath. She then informed the girl that she was introducing the new student. The girl then asked if he was the famous junior that Instructor Nabarose had mentioned a few days ago, to which she replied affirmatively and instructed her to introduce herself. As she approached Ronan, he is left completely speechless. She then introduced herself as Adishan, a second-year student from the martial arts department and the teacher's assistant. When she reached out her hand for a handshake, Ronan didn't respond at all because he is so shocked, as the person in front of him is none other than Grand Commander Adishan. Prior to his regression, Adishan Akalusia was acknowledged by everyone in the Empire because of her incredible commanding abilities, making her the first woman to rise to the rank of Grand Commander. She dominated the battlefield with her cool-headed judgment and incredible leadership, earning the nickname Iron Lady. Those who have been under her leadership would describe her as the Iron Lady, whose veins ran not with blood but with molten iron. Now, thinking back on it, Ronan could have never imagined that the Grand Commander could make such an expression. However, thanks to that, he can confirm that she does not have any recollection of the past, which made him wonder if this is her original self before the cycle of regression. This puts him in a tough position, as prior to his regression, she asked for a favor, which was for him to tell her not to do anything stupid and just become a tailor. This is a really tough request, as there's no guarantee that she would even listen to him. This is a big problem, but leaving that aside, he noticed something strange earlier. Then suddenly, one student requests that Adishan take a look at his stance, which she accepts. As she was about to go there, another student requested a different handkerchief as hers smelled a little weird, which she also accepted and quickly began helping everyone. This is the strange thing that Ronan had noticed earlier, which is that she is awfully busy. This made him wonder if a teaching assistant is supposed to be like this, running small errands that a maid would do. Then someone from behind calls out to him, stating that he looks bored. The guy turned out to be Carden, who was seen in the corridor. He then suggests a spar between them. This confuses Ronan, and he questions who he is and why he suddenly wanted to spar with him. Carden apologizes for being hasty and introduces himself as Carden Owen. He says that he heard rumors about Ronan's amazing performance at the senior-junior meeting, and if the rumors are true, he would like to use this sparring to learn about his lacking aspects. Ronan accepts his request and informs him that they will spar later, as there is something he must do right now. Carden then cuts him off, proceeding with the spar, saying how silly of him to not bring a weapon when he was the one asking for a spar. He then disrespectfully calls out to Adishan, calling her a moron and telling her to bring his practice spear. She responded that she will bring it right away. Meanwhile, Ronan is so shocked that he can't believe what he just heard and angrily wonders how dare this bastard call her a moron. Adishan then gives Carden the spear, but instead of thanking her, he starts yelling, asking her why she brought the long spear as it hasn't been that long since he switched to short spears. She quickly apologizes and states that she saw him use a long spear in the last class, which is why she brought this one. Her response annoys Carden, so he starts to hit her with the spear, saying how dare she talk back to him, and that it's her fault for not knowing at least this much despite being the teacher's assistant. Despite being hurt, Adishan doesn't retaliate. Instead, she stood still while Carden kept on hitting and insulting her, saying that she isn't even qualified to attend this class in the first place. However, she managed to attend this class after begging the instructor, so the least she can do is carry out her errand well. As he continues insulting her, Ronan tries his best to maintain composure. However, he couldn't stop himself and quickly halts Cardan by grabbing the spear. When Cardan asks why he's intervening, Ronan cuts him off, saying that they should just proceed with the spar. As if they don't, he has no idea what he might do to him. Confused, Cardan asks Ronan what he's on about, to which Ronan questions why it's so hard for him to understand. He then calls him a f***ing dumbass and tells him to begin the sparring. This sudden hostility confuses Cardan because he doesn't understand his mistake. He asks Ronan if he really said that to him and why he is acting like this all of a sudden. Before Ronan can reply, Cardan quickly grasps the situation and asks if Ronan is doing this for Adishan's sake, or if he knows her or something. As he finds this to be an opportunity to make a scene and insult Ronan for his remark, he sarcastically asks Ronan if he's doing that, because he is also a lowly commoner just like her. Ronan then lets go of the spear and tells him to hurry up and try to at least block his attacks, unless he has a death wish. Then, in an instant, Ronan thrusts the wooden sword at Cardan, which he was barely able to block. This really shocks him, wondering how Ronan is that strong even without using mana. The thrust causes Cardan to be pushed back quite far. Then Ronan tells him that earlier he heard him whining about not wanting to use the long spear, so he did him a favor by breaking his spear in half. He sarcastically asks Cardan if it is to his liking. Enraged, he began using mana while asking how dare he do that without knowing his place. He then rushes to attack Ronan, asking him if he thinks that he will be fine after this, to which Ronan doesn't even reply and just coldly stares at him. And the moment the spear was within his reach, he instantly sliced it in pieces. It was so fast that it seemed like Ronan didn't even move. He then says that he will be fine no matter what, so he suggests that Cardan just worry about himself. As it's now his turn, Ronan quickly starts to attack and begins hitting Cardan in places where it would hurt more, such as his face and waist. And lastly, he holds the sword downward. With this added momentum, Ronan strikes at Cardan's jaw, possibly breaking it. As it was too much for him, Cardan passes out while Ronan tells him to be thankful that they are inside the academy, because if they were to meet outside, he would definitely be dead by now. The result of the spar surprises everyone, as Cardan is the top-ranking student even among the third-year students. Therefore, for Ronan to defeat him with such ease is a feat that shouldn't be achievable by a freshman. Ronan then approaches the group of students who were bossing around Adishan. He then points his swords at the student who was complaining about the handkerchief, and menacingly tells her to come forward. Terrified, she questions why he is doing that to her, to which Ronan responded by saying that if her handkerchief smells bad, she should have washed it herself, so why would she bother someone else for her mess? He then begins approaching the student while letting out a menacing aura, asking her if she thinks the teaching assistant is her servant. This scares the hell out of her. Adishan then quickly intervened, saying that although she doesn't know why he is going that far for her, she is really fine, so he should calm down. However, he doesn't listen to her, and instead asks her to step aside, saying that he can hold himself back in other situations, but he can't just stand by while they look down on her. He refuses to let people continue treating her this way, as even in the Empire, no one has the right to treat her like that. He then gently pushes her to the side, saying that he has no plans on stopping until he teaches all of them a lesson. Suddenly, Instructor Nabarose appears out of nowhere and coldly tells Ronan to stop. At that moment, Ronan finds himself surrounded by a very strong green aura emanating from Instructor Nabarose. She informs him that he won't be held responsible for his sparring with Cardan, as such accidents are common in reality. Her aura then transforms into a snake, coiling around her as she continues, informing him that while she can tolerate small accidents like that, any further escalation won't be accepted. So, for his own good, she advises him to drop his sword and walk away. Ronan tries to resist her aura, but it is so heavy that he can barely move his body. He then looks behind and sees that the instructor's aura has transformed into a giant green snake. As he is completely immobilized, the snake started to lick him. While he wonders if this is truly her aura, and if this is why she is known as the Unparalleled Sword Saint. She then tells him that what he is doing cannot be considered sparring, and as the person in charge of this class, she will not allow it to continue. Judging by how she was able to intervene just as he was about to beat them, Ronan asks if she knows about her teaching assistant being treated badly by the other students, and if she does, Why was she just watching from the sidelines? She replies that it's between her and her teaching assistant, so it's not his place to speak. She then gives him one last warning, telling him to stop and put down his sword. Ronan responds by saying that even if she is the unparalleled sword saint, his answer would still be the same, which is to screw off. Realizing that she can't persuade him otherwise, she is left with no choice but to use force, so she unleashes one of her attacks known as the Grieving Snake. Although Ronan was able to resist her aura and move, he finds himself unable to block her attack and can only smirk in the face of sheer power before eventually passing out. In his first life, when he met Adishan, he asked her why she volunteered to take on the role of the commander of a war that everyone was dying to get away from. She replied that one day he would understand that there is a unique destiny in this world meant only for him, a burden that cannot be passed on to others. That was what she answered back then. And later, when Ronan realizes the meaning of her words, he wonders what she was thinking, as how can a human carry so much burden on their shoulders? Then the scene changes to when they were outnumbered by the angelic giants, and Adishan gave him the orb of regression. She apologizes to him and tells him to never forgive her for passing her burden on to him. Recalling that event of them getting blasted by the angels, Ronan quickly leaps out of bed, screaming. As he begins to calm down, Adishan asks him if he is all right, and if he had a nightmare. Seeing her right after remembering the past caused him to accidentally address her as commander. Confused, she asked Ronan what he meant by commander. He quickly realized his blunder and told her that it was nothing, which further confused her. He then asked if this was the clinic, to which she replied affirmatively, informing him that Instructor Nabaroses had told her to bring him here. She also left a message for him stating that she would start correcting his behavior from today onward during the supplementary class, and that was the end of her message. This left Ronan terrified, and he wondered if he should just pass out again. Adishan then asked Ronan if he had gotten angry for her sake back then. Taken off guard, he quickly looked away and denies it, stating that he values manners highly and is an uptight gentleman. Adishan quickly saw through his lie and started laughing, telling him that he is really bad at lying. She then told him not to hate Cardin and the others too much, as she could understand their feelings. Annoyed, Ronan asked her what she meant, and how she could say that when she did nothing but her best as the teaching assistant. Continuing on this topic, Ronan asked her why she was even a teaching assistant for that class in the first place. This confused Adishan, while Ronan continued, suggesting that perhaps the instructor went easy on the students, and they behaved this way because they are young. However, it still didn't change the fact that the instructor turned a blind eye to their mistreatment, despite being aware of it. So he asked her why she wasn't even angry, despite knowing this. Realizing what Ronan is talking about, she tells him not to misunderstand, as the reason why the instructor acted that way is because she asked him to. Confused, Ronan asks her what nonsense she is talking about. She explains that she did it out of guilt, as she is receiving a privilege she does not deserve. Normally, one has to reach the level of sword expert to attend this class. However, she is being held back a year and has only recently started to control mana. This shocked Ronan, as he never thought that the Grand Commander, who was able to use such an amazing aura, went through something like this at some point in her life. She then continues and explains that she privately asked for a favor from the instructor, which was to turn a blind eye to whatever treatment the students gave her. She also didn't want to burden the instructor, who had already accepted her as a teaching assistant. So, while she is enjoying that kind of privilege, it is acceptable to endure at least that much. And despite all the hardships, she is determined that she can handle this. She then thanked Ronan, saying that she thought that she had gotten used to trivial things like this, but today it was too painful. After a moment of silence, Ronan asks her if perhaps the reason she is going to such lengths is because she wants to become a Grand Commander. This surprises her, and she questions how he knew, and if it was that obvious. She says that she is aware of her lack of skills, but despite that, she can proudly say that her dream is to become the Empire's Grand Commander. Ronan is left speechless by her statement, while she awkwardly acknowledges how reckless it might sound coming from someone who hasn't even reached the level of a sword expert. But still, she is not going to give up on her dream. Although her current state isn't that good, she is confident in military science and strategy, and she also works diligently every day to overcome her shortcomings. As it's already time for the next class, she decides to leave, and suggests Ronan take a good rest before attending classes. Ronan accepts her suggestion and thanks her for watching over him, to which she responds reassuringly that there are no worries, and she will see him in the next class. After she leaves, Ronan stares at her empty chair while remembering the moment before his regression, when Adishan requested that if they were to meet again in the next timeline, can he tell her not to do anything stupid and just become a tailor, as she had done everything else but had never pursued that. This puts him in a really tough position, as Adishan is so determined that there's no way he can tell her to give up on her dream, which makes him wonder what he should do now.